Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner, professional, founder, and managing member of Silverman & Associates. Mark's on the radio every week, and I get a chance to hang out with him from time to time. And Mark, it's Ron Stutz, and I hope you're doing well.
Ron, I'm always happy to be here. It's a hectic time of the year here, kind of coming up towards the end, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm thanking everybody for taking the time to listen. Hope you get something out of it today.
Where in the world has the year 2017 gone? It's just kind of whizzed by.
It's unbelievable how fast the time seems to go these days.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some very important things on today's show for those folks out there who are thinking about retirement and want to know more about managing their money. First of all, you need your certified financial planner, your coach, Mark Silverman, 520-333-7601. I'll put that number out there right off the bat, 520-333-7601. You can call or send a text to that number, and you can get the financial physical. No obligation, no cost, 520-333-7601. Mark, as we are at the end of the year here, I guess we need to start talking about a checklist for the new year. A lot of people kind of reassessing right now. They should be if they aren't, and thinking about where they are and where they want to go in the coming year. As we welcome in a new year, what are some financial matters that we should take a closer look at? Maybe you can walk us through the discussion that you'd have with somebody if they were trying to make a decision on each of these topics. First of all, what about your 401k contributions? What should you be thinking about there?
You should be understanding how much you've contributed, how much you're able to contribute. My thoughts are always try to maximize as much as you can into these type of accounts. You get a tax deduction, so it helps you reduce some of your taxes in the current year. Plus, it's going directly to hopefully your retirement if you save it for that. So try to maximize the 401ks, because if you had to go on your own and do like an IRA or something like that, you can't put nearly as much money as you can in through an employer plan. So try to maximize as much as you can. If you're over 50, you can actually put in even more. So just make sure that you're maximizing the best you can. And I always say start small and increase it over time. And, if you're putting in 5%, try bumping it to 7. Give it a little time, see how you're doing, and then bump it up again and make sure you're trying to maximize it. What our experience is if you do it that way, you will somehow figure out that your bills are still getting paid and that money is not even missed. So the more you have in there, the better off you're going to be. I've never had a client come back and say, wow, we've saved too much money. We have a lot more than we thought we were going to have. The opposite is true, though. As you know, Ron, people wish they would have put away more sooner or earlier, that sort of thing, because you can't make up for time. Or you can, but it's expensive. Yeah. So, start early and try to put as much as you can away for later.
Okay, well, that's what you should be thinking about when it comes to your 401k contributions. How about your IRA contributions?
Same thing is true there. Making sure you maximize that. And if you're over age 50, you can put even more in. If you don't have a plan through work, a 401k, 403b, TSP 457 plan, make sure that you're setting up an IRA. I would recommend actually a Roth IRA if you're eligible for that. I think that's a better deal going forward. But, looking at Roth IRAs or traditional IRAs, whichever one you choose, again, my preference would be Roth, and making sure that you're maximizing and putting as much as you can in there for both you and, if you're married, you and your spouse.
Well, here's one that I'm guessing a lot of people don't really do. They don't really spend a lot of time on this. How about updating your paycheck withholdings?
It's a good idea. And, this is a good exercise to do. I do encourage people to work with CPAs, and I think the benefit of working with somebody like that is they can help you manage it, so you know how many deductions or how to fill out that form each year, so you're not withholding too much and you're not withholding too little. The idea is to withhold just enough so it covers the taxes. A lot of people like to get a bigger amount back, but remember, that's money that you're loaning to the government at an interest-free loan. So I'm not a huge fan of doing it that way. Give the government what they're entitled to, but don't give them any more. And then on the other hand, you don't want to withhold not enough, because then you might get stuck making quarterly payments, which could be burdensome too. So just making sure that you're working with your CPA or having that conversation to have that updated, and making sure you're withholding, electing the right number of dependents, that sort of thing.
If you listen to to this show on a regular basis and you like some of the things that Mark Silverman says and some of the ways that he says them, well, then why not call or text 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Again, call or text if you're more comfortable doing that, and you can arrange a time to come in and talk about all these things. And this is a really good time to do it at the beginning of the year. It'll be a few weeks out now. Here we are at the end of the year and moving into a new one, but you can arrange a convenient time to come in and get these things done. How about, we've talked about 401k contributions and IRA contributions and updating your withholdings and your paycheck. How about gathering all your tax information together? That's a big ordeal for a lot of folks, isn't it?
It is. And, one of the things that I do personally is I have a folder and I just keep everything organized throughout the year. So as things come in, I just put it in the folder. And then you can organize it when it's time to do your taxes, whenever it might be next year that you start putting the stuff together. So just get a folder is my recommendation, and just start putting all those documents in there, and then you can organize it. Because if you just start leaving things spread out everywhere or different files and that sort of thing, it can be a lot of work right before tax time to get all the things together. So again, my suggestion is to just put everything in one place in a folder. And then when it's time to do your taxes, you can organize it and get it all ready for whether you're doing it yourself, the TurboTax thing, or working with a CPA. And
it seems to me that you should also assess your kind of overall retirement health, your retirement health in general, right?
It's a good time. A lot of people realize it's another year that's passed, and now is the time to look forward to make sure you're on track. Unfortunately, most people procrastinate. So the new year starts, and next thing you know, it's, spring, and then it's summer, and then, back into fall again, and then another year goes by. So, procrastination is a problem for everybody, whether you do something or not. And I know now is an easy time just to say, well, we'll make that call in January. But, reach out. I mean, I can tell you that if you call now, you're probably not going to be able to get you in this year, truth being told. We're probably looking at January. So to get on the calendars for January, you got to be proactive now. At least make the call. Nothing happens until you do that. So I would encourage now is a good time to either reach out to us or reach out to whoever your investment people are to make sure that you're doing all that you can. Make sure that you're either going to continue to have the retirement that you already have if you're already retired, or if you're in planning stages of retirement, that you're doing all you can to make sure that you're on track.
Mark, I know that you're probably going to get some calls during today's show and after today's show. What happens when they do arrange time and they come in and meet with you? What happens when they walk through your door?
Well, Ron, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. I can assure you I will not, and I repeat, not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. This is not a sales meeting. Rather, we are going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. And I can tell you, if you're working with somebody at a bank or a brokerage firm, wirehouse, an insurance salesperson, they do not have a fiduciary responsibility on all of your assets. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly, so I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. And like I said, right now we're already booking into January. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call that number and leave a voicemail, or you can simply text that number. Just make sure to include your contact information. A member of Mark's team will get back with you. And when you do come in and talk, you'll be talking with Mark. He's not going to put you off on anybody else at all. Mark Silverman, of course, your certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. And one more time with that number right now, it's 520-333-7601. Call or text. Come in for the financial physical. This is Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. And there's more coming up on today's show after this quick timeout.
Extra, read all about it.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with the amazing Mark Silverman. Mark's on the radio every single week talking about a lot of interesting things having to do with financial matters. And, of course, he can give you lots of good generic advice here on the radio, but can't really get specific without knowing more about your unique situation. And we're all different. This is the portion of the show we call In the News. And a very serious question here, Mark. The Fed decided to raise interest rates by 0.25% in December. What does this mean for your clients and investors in general?
Well, they've raised interest rates a few times so far this year, and rates keep coming back down. So the market's going to be where the market's going to be. And so with the way the stock market is, rates do need to come up because the stock market's competing with the bond market or interest rates. And more people seem like they're more excited about the stock market because of where we are. It's been a bull market for the last over 9 years now, second longest bull market we've ever had. Doesn't mean you should put all of your money in the stock market, depending on where you are. If you're younger, maybe you should. But if for most investors, if they're within a few years of retirement or in retirement, you probably don't want to have all your money in the stock market. You want to have a mixture of different asset classes, including bonds and various types of bonds. And so, what's going to happen if they do raise rates? Initially, you might see some more people that are buying bonds, which overall, that means you get a higher interest rate on those bonds. If you already own those bonds, the value of those bonds can go down temporarily. And if rates do come back down, then those bonds go back up, and which was what we've seen. So the answer to the question is, who knows what's going to happen eventually, because rates are going to kind of go where they want to be, and the Fed will keep raising them. But if they keep going down, that's just the way it is. But that's what we're fighting with. And rates are still historically very, very low. But that's not the reason why you're buying bonds. You're buying it for diversification and protection and having that sort of mix. So again, we'll see what happens when they do raise rates. Like I said, they've done it a couple times this year already, and rates haven't really stuck at the rates that they rose them to. So we'll see, but it should be interesting the final year and see what happens next year, see if this run continues.
That is In the News on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz. Mark Silverman and I will be back right after this quick timeout.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. And I haven't given you the website address. It is savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. You can find out all about Mark and about his business and everything else. But here's the phone number, all-important phone number. It's important to reach out and get in touch this way. Mark can give you all kinds of good generic advice here on the radio, but can't really get specific when it comes to your situation without knowing more about you. 520-333-7601. You can call that number or send a text to it, 520-333-7601. And that'll put you in touch with Mark, and you can come in for the financial physical. One more time, 520-333-7601. We'll give that number again a little bit later on in the show. Let's talk about hidden gems. If you're like most people, you probably have some financial accounts that you haven't paid a whole lot of attention to recently. The statements are just collecting dust in your file cabinet. They may come on a regular basis, and you don't sometimes even open the envelope. But they might actually be hidden gems that could be put to much better use. So I thought today we could talk about some of the accounts that people tend to ignore for too long. What about old 401ks, Mark?
Yeah, this is a good one. We've talked about this a lot, but for those of you who haven't heard me talk about this, but old 401ks, from jobs that you previously had, This would also apply to 403Bs, TSP, thrift savings plans if you have them, 457 plans, any of those sorts of things that are just sitting there. A lot of people just like to leave them where they are. And that's a big mistake for a couple different reasons. One is they kind of get neglected. So you're not actively changing the allocation and looking and rebalancing and doing those sorts of things. The other thing is you don't have a lot of choices. You're limited. You have the ability to take that account now and roll it to a self-directed IRA. It's not taxable or anything like that unless you take distribution of the money, but it's not taxable, and you can invest in anything you want, which does a couple things. One is gives you more choices, which is always a good thing. Two, it helps you control the fees. And then another thing that it also does is it's easier to access. So if you have it with another institution, you can get to it versus dealing with your old company's HR department, for example, can be a pain. So it's always good to take those, and my recommendation is to roll it to a self-directed IRA. That's something we can help you with as well, or your current advisor should be able to help you with that as well. But you want to make sure you do it right. But that's a big one where a lot of people just leave these old 401ks just sitting there doing nothing, and you want to have it allocated properly and making sure that you're rebalancing it at least annually and those sorts of things.
Same thing with a life insurance policy. You may have a life insurance policy that you got a long time ago, and it's just sitting there. You haven't done anything with it for a very long time. That can be a big mistake too, right?
It is. A lot of people buy policies, and maybe the policy they bought served their needs when they purchased them, and maybe they've been paying on them for many number of years now, and their needs have changed. And a lot of people's needs do change over time. Maybe these policies aren't really suitable at this point in time. Maybe that money could be used elsewhere. It could be used to fund your retirement. Maybe that money could be used, a lot of the newer plans now have benefits where it can include long-term care riders in it, which they weren't available in a lot of the older policies. Insurance has gotten cheaper. So it's one of the few things out there. I think TVs is probably another thing. Televisions have gotten cheaper over time, but life insurance has too. And the reason being is people are living longer. So the insurance companies have adapted these new mortality tables, which basically means that they can hold on to your money longer, which means that they can reduce the amount of premium. So as long as you're still insurable, life insurance is actually cheaper. So it makes sense to do a policy review. That's something we do for our clients as well. And a lot of times we're able to get them a better policy or even eliminate the policy, maybe stop making premium payments and using that money into some other places, or taking that money and doing something different with it. Or like I said, using it to cover a different need that might be there now.
Mark, I know that some people save money on a regular basis, and they may put the money into a savings account that they really don't pay a whole lot of attention to, or perhaps they have a money market out there, or a CD that they really haven't thought about in a long time, and that's a big mistake as well.
It is. A lot of people, it's important to save, and it's important to have a certain amount of emergency funds. And I'm not saying you don't need an emergency fund, you do. But that's going to range somewhere between 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, should always be liquid. Doesn't mean you're going to earn a lot of money on that, and that's not the point of it. The purpose of that money is to be liquid, so you have it for things that come up. And if you do use that money, you need to replenish it. A lot of our retired clients will even go as much as 12 months worth of expenses liquid. But any more than that, you're not going to be getting a good rate of return on if they're sitting in a savings account, a money market, or CD. The rates are horrible, as everybody knows. And I've said this before, but in our practice, we use a 3% inflation rate. So if you're not making at least 3% net of taxes and fees, you really are losing to inflation. And so that money should be allocated in something that's going to keep pace with inflation. Like I said, even in the most conservative portfolios. And if you're more aggressive than that, it should be earning a lot more too. So again, you want to have the certain amount of emergency funds, but any more than that should be allocated into some different things.
Maybe you're fortunate enough to have a pension fund, and that can be a really hidden gem as well, can it?
And most people don't have pensions, but we do find clients that do have them. If you've been with Raytheon for a long time, for example, or with U of A, government jobs, those still do have pensions, but they're few and far between with other companies because they just don't exist because they're too expensive. But if you do have them, you want to know what your benefits are. You want to know what the benefits are at different ages, what you're able to get. Is there what we call a COLA, cost of living increase or adjustment? Is there a benefit for your spouse? Because a lot of times you could take it just on your life. You could take it on you and your spouse's life. And then when you take it on your spouse's life, maybe she gets 50% or 75% or 100%, whatever it might be. You want to know what those options are. and that helps in doing the planning. And it's good to get those maybe annually to see what those numbers look like. And that's something we can help you with as well, helping make those decisions.
Mark, I know that there are lots of people out there listening to the show today and thinking, all this makes a lot of sense. I really need to reassess. I need to check into all these assets that I have, really haven't paid a lot of attention to. And so they're likely to call your number and get in touch and want to come in the next several weeks and have a conversation. What do you have to offer those people?
Well, Ron, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your opportunity to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This is much different than all the other radio shows here in Tucson where they're just basically pushing investment and insurance products to you, whether it be annuities or mutual funds, etc. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as I'm sure you're aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson, and the going rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone, however our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. And like I said earlier, we are booking into January. So if you make the call now, we aren't going to be seeing you till next month anyways. If you call in January, it might not be till February. So, please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
You bet. 520-333-7601. Call or send a text to that number, 520-333-7601. Get the financial physical from Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates. And Mark will put your portfolio through a financial physical to make sure it's up to the test to survive and thrive in retirement. It's just like going for your regular medical physical. Why not have a financial physical as well? Makes perfect sense if you think about it. 520-333-7601. Go ahead and call that number, leave a voicemail, or you can text that number. Just leave your contact information there, and a member of Mark's team can get back with you and arrange a time, probably in January, as Mark mentioned. 520-333-7601. Don't put it off any longer. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman. And this is our Getting to Know You segment. A lot of folks have gotten to know Mark over the years because they're clients, but maybe if you're just listening to the radio show and you've never met Mark in person, or maybe you're listening for the first time today. If you are, welcome to the show. Our Getting to Know You segment allows you to get to know a little bit more about Mark. And Mark, may be a silly question, but I think it might be somewhat revealing. What TV channel do you watch most often?
No, that's a tough one. I don't watch one particular channel most often. As you know, Ron, I'm a big U of A sports guy and U of A basketball. It's that time of year. So whatever channel the U of A basketball team's on, whether it be the Pac-12 network or ESPN or ESPN2 or whatever there is. I don't have one specific channel I watch. I watch a lot of sports, it seems like, if I do watch TV, and I don't watch a ton of TV.
Well, that makes perfect sense. A guy who watches a lot of sports and is really interested in sports, you'd follow your teams wherever they were, and they appear in a lot of different places.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's our Getting to Know You segment on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. Mark and I will be back after this.
Mark Silverman is a Tucson native, and his firm is right here in town. That means he's always accessible to you. Start your relationship with Mark and his team today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman, Silverman and Associates. Go to savingwithsilverman.com if you'd like to find out more about Mark. Mark's the guy who's on the radio every single week here in Tucson. Savingwithsilverman.com. The all-important phone number. You can call or text this number right now. Leave a message and leave either a voicemail message or a text message, and Mark's team will get back with you, and you can come in very soon and have a conversation with Mark about your financial situation. No obligation, no cost. 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. As I said, call or text. A lot of people are more comfortable texting these days, and that's fine too. 520-333-7601. Well, we have talked about some really interesting things on today's show already. Let's talk about your biggest assets. If you really took inventory of your financial situation, you might find that you've been taking for granted some assets that make up a huge piece of your financial puzzle. Is it possible you should be putting a little more thought into some of these assets? Mark, how about your 401k?
Again, this applies to 401ks, 403bs, thrift savings plans, TSPs, 457 plans, whatever type of company retirement plan that you have. But yeah, you should, because a lot of people, this is usually their biggest investable asset account is typically their 401k. And so you should be making sure that the risk matches your tolerance and your goals and objectives, making sure the investments are appropriate, making sure that you're rebalancing it on a regular basis. Some companies do offer a service where you can pay and they'll rebalance it for you. That's something we do with our clients, but it's important that you make sure that you're allocated properly. You don't have too much of your company stock. If you do, you might want to have some of it in there, but you don't want to put all of it into one company stock. But just making sure that you have the right mix is important to do, and it's good to review this on a regular basis. Most people don't. They're just putting money away. Sometimes they don't even know how much they're putting away. Sometimes they're not even sure if they're getting the matches or not. So you want to make sure you're at least getting the matches. And as I said earlier, you want to make sure that you can max out as much as you can and just keep bumping it up more and more until you're maxing it out. And so you'll have enough money saved. So hopefully you can do all the things that you want to do in retirement and not be short.
Well, Mark, most people, the biggest asset they have is their house. It may be the biggest payment they make, and I would assume that it would make sense to pay a little more attention to that, and perhaps you can work yourself into a better situation.
Yeah, and we get all sorts of different clients. We have clients that want to keep the house when they do retire. We have others that want to downsize, or they want to maybe get something smaller and maybe get another home somewhere else, maybe up north or whatever it might be. So it just depends on what you're looking at doing. Some people want to have the house paid off before they retire. Some people plan on keeping a mortgage and retire. It's all about creating cash flow, so we could work either way. It's just a matter of what you've saved and how much cash flow you have coming in, and so it's just solving that equation. But, everybody's situation is different, but it's something you need to put some thought into, and if you haven't, it's important to speak with somebody that can guide you and give you some pointers to make sure that you're doing all that you can. And the more time that you have and before you have to make that sort of decision, the better off you're going to be. The less time, the less options you do have.
We're always talking about maximizing your opportunities on this show, and a lot of people don't really put a lot of thought into this, but your Social Security, that's one where you really need to make the right decision before you go into it.
It really is, Ron. For most people, including myself, this is the only type of pension that we'll ever have. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing it. The good news is we have software that we use with our clients where we can actually put in your benefit amounts and show you the different ages as far as, if you took it early at 62 or you took it at full retirement, which for most people is somewhere between, 66 or 67, or versus waiting to age 70, which is where it maxes out. The benefit is each year you wait, you're getting 8% compounded guaranteed. There's no other place out there right now that I know of that gets you 8%, a true 8%. I know they say there's annuities out there that are doing it, but that's not the case. I'm telling you that right now. But a true 8% guaranteed growth of that payment is guaranteed. And the only place you get that is through the government. But a lot of it comes down to life expectancy. So if we can get a good idea as far as what your life expectancy might be, it makes it an easier decision, and we can actually illustrate it with the software that we have.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman with the one and only Mark Silverman. 520-333-7601. Your number to call or text, 520-333-7601. Write it down if you haven't already, 520-333-7601. We're talking about your biggest assets, and another one is your future savings potential. That's something that you really need to spend a lot of time on, and certainly Mark Silverman, as your certified financial planner professional, can help you do that.
Yeah, for people that are still working, I think it's important that you get in the habit of saving. The sooner you can do it, the better. But, in all reality, we talked about procrastination earlier. A lot of people don't really get into being serious about saving until maybe they're 50, 55. Sometimes it's even later than that. So you have a lot of making up to do. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but you really got to be diligent about saving, which means you're putting away a bit and you're saving as much as you possibly can. If you had already been in the habit of saving, it's a lot easier, I can tell you that. But, you can't kick yourself for woulda, coulda, shoulda. You need to worry about where you are now and what decisions you make going forward. So it's important that you know where you stand, how much you want to retire with, and when you want to retire, and see what those numbers look like. And that's why we take a planning-based approach rather than just trying to sell products to people, which may or may not help them, but really getting a clear view as far as assessing your situation and saying, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, are you on track or not? And what can you do if you're not on track, and what kind of trade-offs you're willing to make to get to that point.
Mark, I know that a lot of people are fortunate in that they have a bunch of smaller accounts out there. Some, unbelievably, they may have completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and we're big fans of simplifying things. So when we take on clients, we'll encourage people to consolidate wherever we can. If you are married and you and your spouse have an IRA account, you can't combine those accounts. But if you have an old 401k and you have an IRA and things like that under your name, we can combine those sorts of accounts. A lot of people have things scattered all over the place. And one, it doesn't give you a clear picture of what you really have. Two, it's hard to diversify it because you don't really look at all these different accounts as in the whole picture of one household. And so that kind of makes it difficult too. And then three, it's keeping track of these things. If you move or those sorts of things, you have to let all these companies know. And then when you have to start taking required minimum distributions at age 70 and a half from these accounts, you need to calculate what that's going to be with all these different accounts. So we're big fans of keeping it simple. There's lots of benefits to doing that. And we're here to help and show you why that makes a lot of sense. And keeping it simple sometimes helps everybody, not just you, but also your children. When you get older and pass away and your kids have to take over this stuff, keeping it simple for them is a big benefit too.
Mark, there are lots of people out there listening to the show today, I'm sure, who may have a bunch of smaller accounts out there, and perhaps they have 401k they need to spend some time thinking about, and maybe even their house. They need to think about what they're going to do with it and how they can maximize their opportunities all the way around. And so they're finally going to get around to making that phone call to your office. What happens when they give you a call and you set up a time to get together?
Well, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And you actually do meet with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else like some of the other shows. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we will discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly, so I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. And like I said, we're already booking into January. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Come into Tucson and have a conversation with Mark Silverman. The way to make that happen is 520-333-7601. Call that number, or you can send a text to that number with your contact information, 520-333-7601. It's important to point out that when you do come in for that conversation, you're under no obligation. You may decide to walk away. You may decide that you don't want Mark Silverman's help, and if so, that's okay as well. You'll come out of it with a lot more information than you had going in. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And, of course, Mark has people coming in all the time from all over southern Arizona. He is a certified financial planner, professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. And Mark and I will be back in just a moment with more on today's edition of Saving with Silverman.
When you reflect on your life, what would you like to see as your fondest memories? Summers at your favorite vacation spot? Ice cream with the grandkids after their first t-ball game? Maybe it was your great adventure across the world or volunteering with a local nonprofit. Of course, those memories are still in the future, although they're not as far away as you might think. Be sure you have a financial plan to make them happen. Don't find yourself worrying while enjoying that ice cream. Peace of mind is attainable in your retirement. With the proper planning, you can secure a meaningful retirement. At Silverman and Associates, we can help you make those dreams a reality. Schedule your visit with our team today. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. We want to make memories with you. Get started by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman. By the way, Mark's website is savingwithsilverman.com. Go to savingwithsilverman.com, find out more about Mark and his business in Tucson. He's the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. And it is time now for story time. And Mark, tell us about a time when you've worked with somebody who took a long time to warm up because they had been burned by a financial advisor at some point in the past. They didn't trust you when they came in.
You know, I think there's a lot of distrust in this industry, unfortunately, and I think it's warranted in some cases. But I think most people, you know, they've heard me on the radio, or they feel they kind of know my personality, and I'm fairly laid back, as you can probably attest to, Ron. But, you know, they can go to the website. We have videos on there. There's a lot of information about me. They can vet me and check me out there. I am a CFP as well. So hopefully they've done their homework in that regard. So when they're coming in, they know that who I am and what I stand for. But I'm happy to answer any questions. But I think our process is totally, I know it is, it's different than what most people experience, especially from the radio, because I know there's some other shows here on the radio in Tucson, and a lot of those people are financial salespeople. That's what they're doing. They're selling financial, you know, whether it be mutual funds or annuities or whatever it might be. And they come in and they're being sold a product on that first meeting. We don't even get into investments on the first meeting. That's usually, if things are going well, that's usually on the third or fourth meeting, because we're not into that. We're into planning, and we're trying to do what's right for our clients and assess the needs and build the relationship and that sort of thing. So it gives us time to determine if this is going to be a good fit for our practice and we can help them. And it also gives the client an idea as far as if we're somebody they want to work with, if we're capable and they think we're a good fit as well, because it goes both ways. So to pick one time, this happens a lot of times. I mean, when we're dealing with people's life savings, it's a very serious thing. And you've got to make sure that not only is that person capable of doing it, they're qualified, but they also have the experience, and that there's somebody that you want to work with that you're going to see on a regular basis, because we work with our clients on a regular basis. We get together with them multiple times a year. So if it's not somebody we want to get together with, we're not going to take them on as a client, because we're not just sitting there and just selling them something and they don't hear from us again. That's not how we work.
That's the way it ought to work. It really is, the way you just described it. 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates. Mark Silverman and I will be back in just a moment with more of today's edition of Saving with Silverman.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years you lovingly sacrificed for your family, now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Welcome back to the show. This is Saving with Silverman, starring Mark Silverman, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Thanks for listening today. I'm Ron Stutz, just hanging out for a while here with Mark. 520-333-7601 is your number to call. That's 520-333-7601. Of course, you can call or text at the end of the show today, but you can go ahead and do that right now if you like, and leave your contact information and get on the calendar. It fills up quickly, so go ahead and do it right now if you like, and beat the rush at the end of the show. Time now for the request line. We get some great questions every single week. We have a question here today, Mark, from Carla in Sarita. And Carla says, should I try to get my house paid off before I retire, or just pay it off slowly since the interest rate is so low?
Well, Carla, thanks for reaching out. That's a great question. We get that one a lot. It just depends. I mean, it's nice to have a no mortgage, but even if you have your mortgage paid off, as you probably know, you still have property taxes, insurance, and there's always upkeep of the house. But, we have a lot of clients that don't have mortgages in retirement, and that works well. We also have clients that do have mortgages. So it's about creating cash flow. So it just depends on what are your sources of income in retirement, what that's going to look like. Do you have a pension? That would be helpful. Most people don't. Social Security, most people are eligible for that. What are the sources of income? Have you saved a lot? Do you have assets that you could live off of? Those sorts of things. So it just depends. To get the numbers to work, we can look at it and decide which is best. It is nice to have a deduction, though, with the interest, but the interest is low, like you said, so it's not a huge deduction either typically. So it just depends. A lot of it comes down to peace of mind, though. Some people like just to know that house is free and clear. Some people don't mind carrying a mortgage. We can run the numbers for you and show you which might be in your best interest, though. But great question.
We have another question here from Green Valley, and Paul says he has about $50,000 in cash value in an old life insurance policy. He says he doesn't really need the insurance anymore, so should he just cash it out and invest that money someplace else?
Well, Paul, great question as well. It just depends. A lot of times it makes sense, as I said earlier, to do what's known as a life insurance policy review, where we'll take a look at it and see what's available. If it's an old policy, it probably doesn't have all the bells and whistles that are available today, which means that there might be some things that we can do to create an income from that down the road, or we can use it maybe to cover some long-term care expenses. That's a huge benefit that we see doing this year alone. We've done a ton of those for people. But like I said, as long as you're still insurable, life insurance is now cheaper. And so the company that you're with is not going to call you and say, well, we've reduced what the cost of insurance is. You'd actually have to get a new policy. So we could take a look at that and examine that and see if that makes a lot of sense. You might decide that you don't even need the insurance anymore and you do want to cash it out. But before you do that, you need to know what the tax consequences are. So you need to be careful of that. A lot of people do those sorts of things and then don't realize at the end of the year that they're going to owe a bunch of taxes on it. So we want to make sure we know what the cost basis of that in policy is and that sort of thing. But it's a great question. You do have several options. Certainly reach out and we could sit down with you and see what the best options might be.
Okay, one more question today, Mark, and this is from Cliff in Marana. Cliff says, I told myself that once I hit $1 million in my portfolio that I'd move a lot of money to cash. But now that I'm at $1 million, I'm thinking I can get to 1.2 million before I make that move. What do you think?
Well, you don't want to try to time the market, Cliff, and which sounds like what you're doing. I mean, the markets have been great, and I've said this before. This is the second longest bull market we've ever been in. So I don't know, if it's going to be next year or the year after before we have a correction. I think we might be safe this year since we have such a short time. But, don't try to time the market. I think you really want to be invested based on, what's your risk tolerance, what's your comfort level, and then 2, what are your goals, and making sure those 2 are aligned. Don't try to time the market and try to get in and get out at the high and out when it starts to drop. You can't do that. It's a losing game. I've seen too many people try it. So again, is $1 million enough or is it $1.2 million? I don't know. That's why you need a plan. And we can tell you exactly what your number is based on your age, your life expectancy, when you're retiring, if you're already retired, how much you're going to need in retirement, how much you're going to be spending, inflation, all these different things, your goals and objectives, all these things go together. And that's why we build plans for people so we know exactly what their number is. It's not as easy as you need $1 million or $2 million or whatever it might be. So again, you want to focus on really what your risk tolerance and what your goals are more so than trying to time the market and when to get in and when to get out. That's not a smart idea.
Mark, I know that a lot of folks, including these 3 who wrote in today, Carla and Paul and Cliff, with various questions, and all good questions, I might add. A lot of folks have questions that they'd like to come in and sit down and talk about with you face to face. What do you have to offer those folks who make that phone call?
Well, Ron, I want to thank everybody for reaching out and submitting the questions. And I just want to remind everybody, if you go to the website, which is savingwithsilverman.com, you go on there and click on the radio tab. You could submit your question, and who knows, maybe you'll hear it on the air. But I think those 3 questions we took today. So I've answered some questions. Now it's my chance to ask you a question. And can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I mean, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? I'm going to repeat. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews? But hopefully it's more frequently than that. Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
You can call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. And to get Mark Silverman, founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson, and folks coming in all the time from all over southern Arizona. And Mark Silverman, of course, has helped so many individuals and so many couples and so many families all over the area. Why not find out what it's all about? 520-333-7601 is your number to call to make that happen. You can come in, get the financial physical, no cost and no obligation. And Mark, it's been a pleasure being with you on the show today. I know that you've helped a lot of folks out there already, and they're going to get more specific help, but only if they place that phone call and come in and sit down and talk with you face to face.
Absolutely right, Ron. I mean, that's the only way that this, and like I said, we're getting towards the end of the year. Don't procrastinate and put it off till January, because in January come, and then it's February, March, and then the year kind of, I'm sure what most people experience this year, the year kind of gets ahead of us and everything starts to move along quickly. So my suggestion is call us, get on the calendar. We wouldn't be booking you until January anyways. January's starting to get pretty booked up as it is, but hopefully we help give you some general advice, but in order to see how we can help you, give us a call and see where it goes.
This year has really gone by in a blur. Everybody join us again next time for the next edition of Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.